right. So I'm going to talk a bit about myself because, I love talking about myself. um, so my name is Hanin, and I started writing at the age of 11 in 2004, but it wasn't any serious writing. It was fan fiction, a mix of mostly short stories, fiction, nonfiction, satire. Later on, it became more academic. I took on some social media jobs, some product copywriting, website copywriting. I have a background in literature and journalism. This is what my bachelor is in before I decided that I want to venture into game writing more recently. And I got a scholarship from Coven in 2021 for their Intro to Game Making course, which is where I met a lot of you. I'm currently pursuing my master's in anthropology, which I started before deciding that game writing is the career choice for me. And I'm also building a game making portfolio because this is important. If you want to go into the industry, you need to have something to showcase for it. Okay, so before we get started, I just want to note a few things. I see that some of you come already from a different type of writing background. So you might notice that some of these things that I'm going to say are actually fairly, they overlap with other types of writing. So there's no magical recipe for a perfectly written game. Writing is rewriting again and again and again, and is editing and then re-editing. Also as well, writing is reading other people's work, getting inspired, and having other people read what you write helps because they may point out something that you hadn't noticed. So it's heavy on a lot of rewriting, a lot of editing, coming back to the same idea multiple times. Shouldn't despair you. So writing is practice. The more you write, the better writing you produce. And I'm sure you've heard this multiple times before about so many things that you've tried to venture into. So today, instead of me just giving you a magic recipe or a spell that you can cast on your writing to make it beautiful and shiny, I am here to practice together with you, hopefully give you some tips and tricks that work for me, and we can work on some exercises as well together. I'm sure you've all played games here, or else you wouldn't be interested in writing for games. I'm sure you've wanted to work on games as well, or you've done some game jams. Some of you have done even more advanced things like taking a game making class. So you know that game writing is different from one game genre to another. So for instance, I really like interactive fiction. This is what I focus on the most. Interactive fiction, visual novels, and simulators. They tend to be heavier in terms of writing and content. So you have the world building, you have the character interactions between themselves and as well with other players if it's a multiplayer game. You have NPCs and what they say and their background stories, and down to the smallest details. Like in Animal Crossing, you can see the AC that you place in one of the rooms blowing on the leaves and making them move. This is an artistic choice to focus on the smallest details. And I'm sure as a player, you have noticed before that this makes the experience more enjoyable. And then this strengthens, of course, your writing. In terms of other genres like 2D or 3D platformers, which are mostly what people tend to go to when making their first game in a game jam or otherwise, as well as MMORPGs, they rely less on a narrative and more on dialogue with NPCs, or sometimes not even that, just interacting with objects, depending on how many characters you have. We can go to first-person shooters and shooters in general, or survival games. It trickles down to even less and less narrative, but the choice is really yours. You could include narrative in these. It doesn't make it or break it, in my opinion. And then, of course, we have puzzles, idle clickers, brick breakers. People usually play these. I like to call them when I play them, I like to call them no thoughts, brain empty games. Like, I don't want to win or lose. I want to just relax and smash things or click on things or solve things and feel better about myself for getting the achievements. Okay. So yeah, the game genre determines how you would go about writing it, and sometimes it's harder to write for a genre than another, depending on your own preferences and depending on what games you've played as well, and depending on what you've read in terms of literature. But every story, as I'm sure your English teacher has told you multiple times, has a beginning, a middle, and an end. By the way, I just wanted to say that I'm monitoring the chat. So if anyone wants to ask any questions about the slides, don't hesitate. On to today's more practical section of the workshop. Today's goal, hopefully, by the end of today, your primary goal would be to produce a draft of a game narrative which you can build on. And you can choose any of the genres that I mentioned already. So don't worry about sticking to a narrative, a visual novel, or an interactive fiction just because I like those. In order to achieve your primary goal, you are going to have a secondary goal, which is to learn how to get your message across through your characters, as well as their wants and needs and goals. And a bit less directly, you will get familiar with scoping, minimum viable products, and prototypes versus potential content post-release, like DLCs. All right. Now comes the fun part. I really like this exercise because I don't know, I love ice cream and it has ice cream in it. So it gets me thinking. And usually after I am done brainstorming this exercise, I go and buy myself some ice cream. So we're going to take 15 minutes to go through this exercise at your own pace. Don't worry if you don't finish it. It's just to get you to get your creative juices flowing. So I want you to keep 3 things in mind when you're working on this exercise. The first one is you are going to start with an introduction, a short paragraph about your favorite ice cream flavor. Describe it to us. What is it? Where is it? How do you typically go about getting it? And when do you typically enjoy it? You can treat it as a journey. I really like writing about walks, for instance. I really like taking a walk and describing what's going on in full detail in order to paint a picture. And perhaps you are walking to the ice cream shop parlor or to the supermarket. You could do that. After that, I want you to think of what will happen if one day you woke up and this ice cream was gone. So it could have disappeared. It could have never existed to anyone but you. And then you ask someone and they go like, I don't know, I've never heard of that ice cream flavor. It could be that you decide to write about a fictional ice cream flavor as well that doesn't exist at all. And you want to convince us, the people in the workshop with you, that this ice cream flavor exists. Who knows? It's really up to you. Or maybe your doctor announced that you're lactose intolerant. It happens. And lastly, after you are done brainstorming the first 2 points, I want you to console yourself about this loss. What did you decide to do in order to get over this loss? Did you choose a new ice cream flavor? Did you decide to give up ice cream altogether? Did you perhaps decide to go vegan because what's the point of eating dairy if you can't eat ice cream anymore because ice cream is the best type of dairy to you?